What if the path to financial freedom isn't a ladder you climb, but a maze designed to keep you lost? We're handed a blueprint from the day we start earning. Work hard, save 10%, diversify your portfolio, and for God's sake, cut out the $5 lattes. This is the gospel of smart money. It's logical, it's safe, it's responsible. It promises that if you just follow the rules, one day you'll arrive at a sun-drenched destination called security. But if the map is so clear, why do so many of us feel like we're walking in circles? Why do people who do everything right, the saving, the investing, the budgeting, still lie awake at night, gripped by a quiet panic that they're one bad month away from disaster? The conflict isn't that the advice is bad, it's that it might be for a different game entirely. It treats the complex, emotional, and deeply personal journey of wealth building like a simple board game with fixed rules. But our lives are not board games. In this video, we're going to deconstruct the very foundation of smart money. We will explore why the safest path is often a trap, how our own psychology is used against us, and what the true cost of conventional financial wisdom really is. We need to understand not just the rules we've been taught, but who wrote them, and more importantly, who they truly serve. Because the lie isn't in any single piece of advice, but in the entire philosophy that keeps you playing defense in a game that S1 on offense. Most of us view the world of money through a very specific lens. The prevailing myth is that wealth is a result of deprivation and discipline. You sacrifice today for a better tomorrow. This is the story of the diligent saver, the prudent investor. We're told to max out our 401k, a pre-tax investment account that lets your money grow over decades. We're advised to build a diversified portfolio of stocks and bonds, spreading our risk so no single market swing can wipe us out. And we're celebrated for paying down our mortgage on a 30-year schedule, slowly and steadily building equity in our home. These aren't just tips, they are pillars of a financial identity. They represent stability, foresight, and control. They feel smart. But if this system is so perfect, why does it feel so fragile? Think about the person who saved diligently for 20 years, only to see their retirement account cleaved in half by the 2008 financial crisis. Think about the homeowner who, after a decade of faithful payments, is suddenly underwater on their mortgage because the market turned. These aren't failures of discipline, they are failures of the system itself. This is the first crack in the facade. What if the smart money playbook isn't about making you wealthy, but about making you a predictable, manageable part of a larger economic machine? What if its primary goal isn't your freedom, but your compliance? To understand why this is, we have to look at a concept from behavioral economics called loss aversion. In simple terms, for the human brain, the pain of losing something is about twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the exact same thing. Losing a $100 bill feels devastating, while finding one feels pretty good. The entire architecture of smart money is built on this psychological trigger. It's a system designed not to help you win, but to soothe your terror of losing. Let's re-examine one of its sacred cows. Never borrow from your 401k. On the surface, this is sound advice to protect your future. But viewed through the lens of loss aversion, it is a rule that prioritizes the fear of a potential future loss over a tangible present gain. It prevents you from, say, pulling out $30,000 to invest in a business that could generate $1 million. It frames your own money as a sacred object to be guarded, not a tool to be used. The system quietly whispers that you aren't smart enough to be trusted with your own capital. So what looks like prudence is actually a cage built from fear. It's a mechanism of control. And that is our first major realization. The core function of smart money isn't a wealth creation, but risk elimination. And in a world where wealth is created by taking smart, calculated risks, this philosophy is a death sentence for true financial liberty. If that's true, then we have to confront the biggest, most emotionally charged piece of the puzzle. The idea that your house is your greatest asset. For generations, this has been the bedrock of the American dream. A piece of land, a roof over your head, It's more than an investment. It's a symbol of arrival, of stability. But what if it's the most effective trap of all? An asset is supposed to put money in your pocket. A house does the opposite. From the moment you buy it, it starts taking. There's the mortgage, property taxes, insurance, maintenance, repairs. It is an endless black hole of expenses. It's also profoundly illiquid, meaning you can't easily convert it to cash. It locks your capital in a non-productive asset and chains you to a single geographic location, limiting your career and life opportunities. The system sells you a dream of ownership, but the reality is that for the first 15 or 20 years, the bank owns your house. You just live there and pay for its upkeep. The emotional and financial devastation this one belief has caused is immeasurable. It convinces people to pour their life savings into a depreciating, high-maintenance liability, all while calling it a brilliant investment. This is the great twist in the story. The supposed pinnacle of financial success is, for many, the very anchor that weighs them down. So, if the single biggest goal the system sets for us is a beautifully decorated cage, what are we really being guided toward? To answer that, we have to look beyond the dollars and cents and understand the true currency at play, your time and your freedom. We cling to these rules because they offer us a sense of certainty in an uncertain world. The fear of the unknown, of forging your own path, is far more terrifying than the slow, predictable grind of the conventional one. It is the same psychology that kept the company man of the 1950s loyal to a single corporation for 40 years in exchange for a pension and a gold watch. That system offered a clear, linear path. It worked until it didn't. The world changed. Corporations shed their loyalty, and the promise was broken. Our modern financial rules are a holdover from that same era, an era of stability and predictability that no longer exists. We are following an old map into a new world, and then we wonder why we are lost. But I know what you might be thinking. What about the undeniable virtues? What about living below your means, avoiding high-interest debt, and having an emergency fund? Surely those aren't lies. That advice seems to refute everything we've said. And you're right, it isn't a lie. But it is a masterful distraction. The system's brilliance lies in getting you to obsess over the minutiae of saving while ignoring the art of earning. It turns your financial life into a game of defense. You become an expert at clipping coupons, hunting for discount codes, and cutting streaming services. You win by spending $100 instead of $110. You are conditioned to celebrate small, insignificant victories of frugality. And here is where we find the most insidious part of the lie. This defensive crouch consumes all of your time and mental energy. While you're busy optimizing your grocery bill to save $20, you miss the opportunity to learn a skill that could increase your income by $20,000. The advice isn't wrong. Its emphasis is. It teaches you to be a brilliant manager of a shrinking pie instead of teaching you how to bake a much, much bigger one. And so, even its greatest virtue, prudence, becomes the ultimate tool of your containment. It keeps your world small, your ambitions manageable, and your potential capped. So let's assemble the pieces. Our innate fear of loss is exploited to make us prefer safety over opportunity. This steers us toward illusions of security, like locking up our capital in a house that drains our resources. To service this cage, we're taught to obsess over defensive measures, pinching pennies while our most valuable asset, our own potential to create value, atrophies from neglect. It's a perfectly closed loop. The breaking point comes when the pain of staying in the system becomes greater than the fear of leaving it. It takes the moment you realize you've spent your one life saving for a future you may not want or see, all while sacrificing the present. It takes the realization that the safe road is guaranteed to lead to a destination of quiet regret. Now that we understand the machine that is designed to keep us stuck, we can finally ask the real question. What does its ending look like? If the rules of smart money are the problem, what is the solution? The answer will change everything you thought you knew about wealth.